My number one book for understanding postural restoration from a global perspective without learning postural restoration is by far this book, The Master and His Emissary, because he talks about how the brain is inherently asymmetrical. The body is inherently asymmetrical. Everything about us is asymmetrical, and this asymmetry leads to what they call lateralization of function, where the right side of the brain is specialized and does better with certain things, and the left side is specialized with other things, particularly language for the left side. But in reality, one of the interesting things that's going to pertain to this video is that he talks about the visual system. And in birds in particular, he talks about, now of course we're not birds, but we're talking about visual behaviors, and there are patterns that show up with the visual system in PRI that may or may not be understood by normal optometrists. So what he says about birds: if you are a bird, in fact, you solve the conundrum of how to eat and stay alive by employing different strategies with either eye. The right eye, which is the left hemisphere of the brain, for getting and feeding, and the left eye, which is the right hemisphere, for vigilant awareness of the environment. So what they're going to do is they're going to use their right eye for up close and doing whatever is right here, near, and kind of probably also peripheral. And the left eye is going to be checking in the distance for vigilance, to stay vigilant to detect predators. So that they're using they're using their eyes for two different things. Again, the right eye is being used for up close and obtaining and eating whatever is directly in front of us, while they're using the left eye off in the distance to check for predators. Good strategy. Well, it turns out that we kind of do the same thing. So the basic premise of the book is that you have a left hemisphere of the brain and a right hemisphere of the brain. And all new experience starts in the right hemisphere of the brain, gets passed to the left hemisphere of the brain for processing and labeling and understanding what you're seeing or experiencing in a more finite, concentrated way. And then that information has to be passed back to the right side to understand that this finite, more nuanced, more focused way of seeing something is still part of a bigger picture. And he also says, his idea is that when new experience enters the right side, so the right side is paying attention to new experience, novel experience, connective experience, seeing the whole piece, the whole picture. The left side is more focused on breaking things down, labeling things, seeing the differences between different things. Instead of noticing the similarities, it's always picking out the differences. And that's how we manipulate things, and that's how we create better understanding of things, as long as we can reincorporate it into the whole again, as long as that information, that processing, gets passed back to the right side, where we don't see. So here's an example. You see a body, you look at a leg, and then you have to realize that leg is part of the entire body again. In traditional physical therapy or a lot of different modalities, they'll look at a body, they'll look at the leg, and they just work on the leg, not realizing how that leg is incorporated into the entire body. They're over-focused, they're over-specialized, and that's the problem with specialization, is when you become too specialized, you keep narrowing down, you lose the bigger picture. You become hyper-focused, too overly focused. And what you're going to see is, with the visual system, that's a problem. Now, if this subject is interesting you, I'll put a couple links in the description of other videos on my channel that also have to do with vision and this alternation issue that we're talking about. Now, I've talked about this visual quirk in the human brain in a lot of videos. And what it shows is, again, here's the hemispheres, the right hemisphere of the brain, the left hemisphere of the brain, the left visual field and the right visual field. And it's important to remember, we're not talking about acuity, how clearly you see. What we're talking about is what our brain is paying attention to, which is a completely different, kind of a different thing. So we're not talking about clarity. I don't care how clearly someone sees. I do care about what that brain is paying attention to. So it turns out, for whatever reason, that the right hemisphere of the brain pays attention to the left visual field and the right visual field. So remember, the right side is paying attention to the left visual field and the right visual field. The left hemisphere, for whatever reason, only pays attention to the right visual field. So you have a brain that is already paying attention to the right side of our visual world more than the left side. And that is a problem when that inherent bias becomes too great so that you stop alternating your visual system. So just like the pelvis needs to alternate between left and right as we walk, and the rib cage needs to alternate between compression and decompression as we walk and breathe, and the neck, especially up at this top part of the joint, has to alternate. The head has to alternate. Now, the head doesn't do this as we're walking. It shouldn't. That occurs in a relative manner because everything underneath is doing that, which allows the head to stay stable, but underneath the bones are still alternating. And that head will go from side to side, more so as the neck rotates underneath it. That's alternation. The same thing has to happen through the oral cavity. Molars, canines, molars have to be able to alternate. If you have a crossbite, things start to, like I did, things start to break down. But that also goes for the visual system. The visual system needs to alternate between near and far. Now remember those chicks. The right eye is paying attention to what's up close for the chicks, and the left eye is paying attention to what's going on in the distance as it checks for threat, for predators. Well, it turns out with these two individuals that I'm going to show, the same thing was happening. These individuals, because of this very natural tendency of the brain to pay attention to what's going on the right side, we become patterned sometimes in our visual system, where the left eye is only paying attention to what's in the distance and the right eye is only paying attention to what's up close. And that does coincide with cycles of to the gait cycle. As our body moves through space and the position of our head is alternating, our visual system should alternate between looking distance and looking near. And this is alternation. All right, that's what we need to have happen. But sometimes we get patterned and we get stuck in one state where the left eye is paying attention to what's in the distance and the right eye is paying attention to what is close up and over to the right, so the right periphery, which produces, because of this inherent bias, which produces and strengthens this right TMCC, right BC, left AIC pattern. And this visual behavior that has built up over time has to be inhibited for an individual to get off of their right side and onto their left side. So this person came to see me, and I knew he had a weird prescription because I always have people send me the prescriptions first, or hopefully. And he had a -1 in the right eye, but nothing in the left eye. So already there's some sort of interesting asymmetry. That always kind of rings my alarm bells, or my alarm bells ring when I see stuff like that. A full 1.0 in the right, but nothing in the left. So already I'm already thinking, is this individual's left eye over fixated in the distance? And so the right eye struggles to see in that distance, not because the vision is really wrong, but the brain, the asymmetry of the brain, what the brain is paying attention to is forcing that situation to occur. Again, I can't say for sure, but this is what we found. So this test, this right leg, I am testing his right leg abduction, the ability for his right leg to go up. If it doesn't go up, you know he has an overactive right inner thigh. Now, does that mean you stretch the inner, is it an inner thigh issue? Is it a right adductor issue? Well, it is, but that right adductor is only staying active because this brain is, or his brain is saying, stay overactive for some reason. And that's the science of PRI. Why is that overactive right adductor staying overactive? It's not, the muscle didn't just decide to be overactive. Something is going on in that brain and that respiratory system that keeps that right inner thigh, that right adductor overactive. So this is what happens. So I'm just gonna let it play, and you'll see his right leg adduction is pretty limited. Doesn't really go high at all. So now he takes off his glasses, and I put on my special magic glasses, or I have him put on his special magic glasses, and he walks. Making you hear things And now he lies down. And his abduction goes much higher. So that was the difference. So you saw his right adductor completely let go. Now, why? Well, what I did, remember, I was sticking with my natural inclination, or what I thought was occurring. I thought there's a possibility that his left eye is paying attention, or when I say eye, the brain, is paying attention to the distance on the left side, and the right side is paying attention to what's up close, just like the chick. And so what I did was, we took his glasses off. I took a pair of reading glasses that have 0.5 in the left eye and nothing in the right side. I popped the lens out. So only the left side had a lens, and it was 0.5, a plus. So they were reading glasses. So what I was trying to do was blur the distance a little bit on the left side so that his brain couldn't see so clearly in the distance, so it had to pay attention to the periphery on the left side. So your right inner thigh, your right leg, your right rib cage, your right TMCC pattern, this right side pattern will stay overactive if your brain is not actively sensing left peripheral vision. And if you have a brain that is saying, screw all that, I'm only going to pay attention to the distance on the left side, your brain ignores the left periphery, so you never move to the left fully. And that has to be inhibited. Now with this individual, he's going to have to actually see an optometrist, because what happened was, if he had those glasses on, or my glasses, my special reading glasses, he could do PRI techniques and he could feel his left hamstring, his left adductor, and his testing was good. But the moment you took those off and put his prescription back on, or or didn't wear anything at all, he'd go right back into the pattern and nothing would work. So my guess is he's going to need some sort of special prescription that alternates the issue, that alternates the function, the behavior of those two eyes. The right eye, because remember the chick, that right eye is using that eye up close and kind of to the side. That right eye has to learn how to look in the distance, and the left eye has to learn to look up close. So he's got to learn how to eat with his left eye and his left hand, and that left eye has to learn how to look close. But sometimes that pattern is so embedded that you can't do it without a special prescription that kind of takes away the distance. And I don't know all the particularities of how they do that, but I know it can be done. At that point, that body, when that left eye and brain start paying attention to the periphery on the left side instead of the right side, that body will be able to shift over to the left side, and that right leg will stay neutral. That right adductor will not tighten up again. Now with this individual, it was kind of the same issue. When I had him standing up, and he's a track athlete, very athletic, you can tell, he had no left side to get onto. And when I first started his testing wasn't that bad, but his neck was limited in cervical lateral flexion, and he had a pathological left hip, which most people do, and I've made videos about this. When hip extension is bad, I'll put that in the description of the video, and you want to look at that. Because of that patho left hip, when he's working out intensely or running, because he still trains for running, for sprinting, he's a track athlete, to make up for that instability in that left hip, he had to do something. And for him, he's using his left eye, again, the distance, to stabilize his body, either when his weight's on the left foot, or maybe he's just using that left eye to keep him on the right side. Either way, it's messing with his mechanics. Now, he doesn't need a new prescription. Again, all I did with him was gave him those he said he had perfect vision, but I know he had a patho left hip. He said he had perfect vision. The optometrist said he had perfect vision, but his left eye was doing something weird. And I remember that. Like one of the muscles wasn't working properly. So what we did, got him into, when we put him on his left leg into left stance, without the glasses, his quads and his hip flexors turned on immediately, and he said they were just lighting up on him. When I put the reading glasses on him that blurred his distance, that didn't happen. And then I just had him doing some simple techniques where he's standing on his left leg and moving his eyes around and paying attention to the left periphery. And then once we did that, he was neutral, and he was able to stay neutral even when he didn't have the reading glasses on. So for him, it wasn't yet an embedded pattern. It was something he was doing actively, not consciously, obviously, But it hadn't become a pattern at that point because, well, it hadn't become a permanent pattern. It was a pattern, but once we put the reading glasses on, took away his distance, his periphery opened up on both sides, and he noticed immediately. He was very smart too. He noticed immediately. He said, "Oh, I'm noticing a lot more things in this room right now," because he had become so hyper focused in the distance. Maybe with both eyes, I don't know, but I was only really going for the left eye. And once he put those distance glasses on, or the reading glasses on, it blurred his distance. His brain had to pay attention to the periphery. His body relaxed. And he was passing all his tests, and then he could actually, at that point, he could actually do a PRI program. Now, I'm not going to say this happens with everybody, and well, it certainly doesn't happen with everybody. It happens with some people, and that's one of the reasons that some people, especially if they have cranial issues, like a jaw that's mispositioned or malocclusion, you often find them together. Maybe if they have a hearing issue, they have hearing loss, same thing can happen. Once you lose one thing, other things have to adjust. And that's when the cranium interferes with the PRI program, because you can do all the PRI techniques in the world. Like he met me at a PRI conference in New York that I was helping out at, and he was not getting neutral, not even close. And he would not have gotten neutral through normal PRI techniques until we got him off of his visual pattern, because the cranium runs the show. You can work ground up as long as the cranium is allowing it.